instead of working with us on solutions, Republicans are playing politics with human beings, using them as props. What they're doing is simply wrong. It's un-American. It's reckless. And we have a process in place to manage migrants at the border. We're working to make sure it's safe and orderly and humane. Republican officials should not interfere with that process by waging these political stunts.
It was President Joe Biden last night slamming Republican governors for their continued deceitful and, in his words, un-American protests of immigration policies. Today, new pictures show dozens of migrants in Martha's Vineyard, thankful and hugging the residents there as they left for a military base in Cape Cod. Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis sent them there unannounced, both to them and to folks at Martha's Vineyard this week, while Texas's Governor Greg Abbott sent dozens more migrants to Vice President Kamala Harris's house. It's just the latest escalation of their political behavior. Human beings, again, being used as political pawns. Republicans have sent thousands of human beings in recent weeks to Chicago, New York, and D.C. Now, from activists to Democratic lawmakers and reasonable Republicans, calls are growing for the Justice Department to investigate potential kidnapping and political human trafficking. His lawyer today addressing recent reports about the lies the migrants were told to be lured onto the airplanes flying to Martha's Vineyard. Watch.
They were told there was a surprise present for them and that there would be jobs and housing awaiting for them when they arrived. This was obviously a sadistic lie. They also very intentionally chose not to call ahead to any single office authority on Martha's Vineyard so that even the most basic human needs arrangements could be made.
Joining our coverage, the Reverend Al Sharpton, host of MSNBC's Politics Nation and president of the National Action Network, and Charlie Sykes, editor-at-large of The Bulwark, also an MSNBC contributor. Charlie, you've written the smartest piece I've read about what happened because it takes the whole picture into account. I worked for a president in 2000 and immigration was broken. We tried and failed to fix it. Immigration was broken during President Obama's presidency, and he tried and failed to fix it. That's because Republicans backed out of any legislative solutions. Immigration was broken while Donald Trump was there, and he didn't fix anything, including his top priority, which was immigration. And immigration is broken today. And what DeSantis and Abbott are doing is sadistic, sick stuff.
It is. Look, I mean, there's a legitimate debate that we can have about immigration, but this is not a debate. This is theater of trolling. This is theater of cruelty, and it's this year's caravan being used as a cheap political stunt. Look, the reality is that Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott could have made many points. They could have had press releases. They could have raised money, but instead they used human beings, actual human beings, as pawns. And they did it based on what that attorney called a sadistic lie. Look, I think the saddest part about all of this is that most Republicans love this. I mean, this is playing very well among right-wing media who thinks that, this is LOL, this is triggering the libs, this is owning the libs. And they're not stopping to ask about the fundamental immorality of using vulnerable human beings, including children, in this particular way, in a way that seemed designed to maximize the confusion and the cruelty. But Ron DeSantis knows what he's doing. He knows this is the nature of American Republican politics right now. He has scored points with it, and he frankly doesn't care what the rest of us think about it, or obviously what happens to these human beings, who, by the way, were Venezuelans fleeing communism. One would have thought that Republicans would have been more sympathetic to that.
Sympathy requires empathy, which requires a heart, and I think we know how that ends. Rev, to Charlie's point about the sickness on the right, I mean, Pompeo, the former Secretary of State of the United States, was, mugging and smugly laughing about this. This is at the highest levels of it's not just the smarmy Twitter trolls. At the highest level of the last Republican sort of leadership class. They love this. What do you do about that?
Well, I think you've got to punish them in terms of making sure they don't come into power. That's what you do about it. But I think that this is as morally despicable as you can get. And I think that there's an element of this that is racially tinged. It is not lost on a lot of us that they send them to Washington, D.C., to Mayor Bowser, or to Lori Lightfoot in Chicago, or Eric Adams in New York, all black mayors, and to Martha's Vineyard, which is a well-known place where the black elite have their homes, including Barack Obama. So they get an extra dig into their crowd. Then let's send them to these people of color that are in power. And I think it was Alex Wagner last night did a piece on this is what the segregationists did in the early 60s when I was a child. They deceived people in a southern state, blacks, and said, we're going to bring you to Massachusetts, send you to Massachusetts. You're going to meet with President Kennedy and discuss your rights. And of course, when they got to Massachusetts, there was no meeting with President Kennedy. There was no discussion of their rights. It was to mock them and use them as political pawns and almost as a joke to make their point about segregation. That's exactly what DeSantis and Abbott is doing some 55 years later. And it ought to be repulsive. And you see children in there. Aren't these the pro-life people? So you're now so concerned about babies being born, but you're going to have babies from Venezuela all over the country just being used as pawns on a political chessboard?